Hello, I'm Chris Cole, president of Chris Cole and Associates, national and medical pharmaceutical sales recruiters. Want to spend a little bit of time talking about manager interviews today. Recruiters do a lot of time preparing candidates for rep interviews and account executive interviews, but maybe not as much time as they should for manager interviews. In my opinion, you should do even more preparation for a manager interview because you're going up against the best of the best. So, my advice, preparation, preparation, preparation. Preparation is key. A lot of times when I'm having conversations with managers, they'll say they have interest in having a conversation or they're somewhat interested. And those are concerning because when you go in with that laid back attitude, a lot of times the interview does not go as well as if you were prepared. Um, and I can tell you, I've heard this story numerous times, but I'll tell you one from 9 years ago. Had a manager was interviewing, said, Chris, I've interviewed over 100 reps. There's nothing they can throw at me that will throw me off. And I said, okay, great. Let's get you tuned up. Let me ask you a few questions and we'll do a little bit of work getting you prepared. So no, 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 I got this. And he went into the interview, and when he went to the interview, he found he really liked the product, really liked the people, really wanted the job. And he calls me back and he goes, Chris, I should have listened to you. He goes, I really want the job, but I did a terrible job on the interview because they did ask me a number of questions I was not prepared for. So don't let that happen to you. If you are interested in exploring an opportunity, give it your full preparation. Do everything you can because if you get in there, you don't get a second first impression. If you decide you really, really want the position, you're not going to get a do-over if you go in unprepared. So definitely go take a look at my interview preparation video. Those are the bare minimum you would do if you were a rep. And then watch this video and it will ask you a number of questions that you should be prepared to answer if you want to do a district sales manager position. So I hope this helps. Enjoy the video. And everything I'm telling you is based on 11 years of experience of having interviewed and coached hundreds of sales managers. And hopefully we get you prepared for a job that you want. There are two types of candidates that should benefit from this video. Essentially, you have veteran sales managers looking to make a switch into a different company. Or you have reps ready to take the next step in their own company or a different company. I will speak to both groups of candidates throughout the video, and for those reps looking to take the next step, I'll give you some tips on ways you can try to overcome the disadvantage of not having some of the experiences that veteran managers have. All right, my obligatory disclaimer. Disclaimer, these are just my opinions. Other recruiters may have different opinions. In no way does using these tips and techniques guarantee you will receive a job offer. I always tell my candidates, you're the quarterback on the field. You make the call. These are just my opinions. They do not guarantee you will get the job, but they may help. A little documentation checklist. First, resume. And you don't want to just take one copy because if you have one copy, you really can't speak to it. You need multiple copies. You need one for yourself and then one for whoever's interviewing you. And you never know when people are going to show up and how many people are going to be in the room. So I'd take at least 6 so that you have enough to hand out to everybody. 30, 60, 90-day plan, exact same thing. If you're going to do a 30, 60, 90-day plan, I would take multiple copies so you can hand them out to whoever's in the room. You're going to want a brag book if you have one. If you haven't put together a brag book, I definitely would. You're going to want to take field coaching reports that you filled out in the past so you have examples of the types of coaching you do. Strategic plans, if you've done any planning, I would make a copy of that and take it with you. If you've ever put a rep on a PIP or been involved with a rep being on a PIP, I would take a copy of your PIP. Documentation of your results, definitely want to take that with you. Examples of influencing direction in your current company. If you have any write-ups or anything regarding goals or paradigms you've put in place, probably a good idea to take that with you so you can speak to it. Letters of recommendation from your reps you've supervised. If you have any letters from your reps or emails of congratulations, take them with you. It's a good way for people to be able to see how your reps view you. And then documentation of coaching reps to the next level. Email communications, things like that. Obviously, a lot of this stuff is confidential, so you just leave it in your brag book. You can discuss it or show it to them, but you're not going to leave it with them. So just a little kind of review of documentation, things that you should probably take with you if you have it. All right, be prepared for multiple interviewers. A number of times when you are interviewing for a district manager position, they will have multiple managers in there interviewing you. And a lot of times they'll be peppering you with all sorts of questions, sometimes for a couple hours at a time. They dig in really, really deep. Had a candidate about 7 or 8 years ago called me back after his final interview for a district manager position, which he got. He got the job. He goes, Chris, it was like the Kobayashi Maru test. Being a Star Trek fan, I knew the reference. It's basically the no-win scenario where your ship's going to blow up no matter what decision you make. He goes, they kept giving me scenarios that were no-win scenarios, but wanted to see my thought process in these situations. So be prepared for your final interviews to be to dig in very, very deep. And often there's multiple interviewers that are peppering with questions. So be prepared for that. I don't claim to know the right answers for any of these questions. But what I will tell you is you should have answers to all of the questions I'm about to ask you. So I will give you some tips, especially if you don't have a direct manager experience, to help you potentially use transferable skills to address them. But like I said, really it depends on the culture of the company, the culture of the manager you're interviewing with. So there are probably multiple right or wrong answers depending on the culture of the company you're interviewing for. Keep that in mind. Like I said, I don't know. Sometimes people ask me, what is the right answer? Well, it depends. It really depends on what the company's looking for. Are they looking for a motivator? Are they looking for a coach? Are they looking for someone who can manage people out? What exactly are they looking for? And then you can address the questions in that context. One question you're almost certainly to get is how many direct reports do you have? And what type of direct reports are they? If it's a position is to coach 7 reps, sales reps, and you are currently coaching 3 associate sales reps that are clinical in nature, it may not be a fit. And we will identify that when you and I have a conversation early on, and I'll let you know I don't think it's a fit because we're not looking for clinical people here. We're looking for hardcore salespeople. If you don't have that experience, you want to talk about transferable skills. You want to talk about any field coaching you've done, any mentoring you've done, any assisting you've done with helping get people off of PIPs. And if you are looking to take the next step, you want to take on as many responsibilities like that where you are coaching people that you can draw on to help move to the next level. Mentioned the word PIP a couple of times. If you don't know what a PIP is, we've got our work cut out for us. It's Performance Improvement Plan. It's basically when struggling reps are not performing to where they need to be, the organization will come up with a group of strategies to get that person to where they need to be. So many managers have worked with a PIP. They put reps on a PIP. Hopefully they were talented enough to manage the reps to get them off of the PIP to where they're performing now. There are instances where they have to use the PIP to manage the reps out of the organization. And be prepared, if you have that experience, to talk to both of those things. If you don't have the experience with a PIP, especially if you're a rep looking to take the next step, you probably want to start getting involved with your manager and asking them if you can be involved with mentoring reps who are on a PIP. That way, when you do come across this question in interview, you can address it and say, well, I've not written up a PIP on anybody. I have been involved with the process, having worked with reps who were on a PIP, and this was the outcome. So be prepared to talk about that. Ideally, you have both experiences where you've managed people off of the PIP to become useful performers, and you've managed people who should not be in the organization to a different career, hopefully. And if you have that experience, be prepared to talk to both. One of the most important things you can be if you're a manager is a coach. So here's a few coaching questions for you. Have you ever coached a rep off of a PIP? If you have, be prepared to talk about each strategy that you use. Take credit for it. Be prepared to verbalize each of the strategies you used so that the people you're interviewing with know the skill set you bring and can help out their organization. How did you achieve this? Be prepared to talk about that. Have you ever coached a good rep to great? That is a great question. It's my favorite question I've heard, which is coaching a top 30%er to President's Club. And be prepared to talk about what strategies you used to get that person to grow. How did you convince that person to grow? Was it internally motivated from the rep, or did you have to challenge them? Be prepared to talk about that. And again, how did you accomplish that? So spend a little bit of time thinking about that. If you're on this video, you might want to pause it now and talk about and think about how did I get that person off of a PIP and every single thing you did so you're prepared to talk about it. I always tell people that if I talk to two quarterbacks, we'll choose two random quarterbacks. Quarterback A says, I dropped back, I threw the ball, and it's a completed pass. And then a quarterback B says, I take a 5-step drop, I wait 3.5 seconds, the receiver runs 7 yards, cuts at a 90-degree angle, and I put the ball in the air before he turns. The second one, even though they did the exact same thing, the second person's going to get the job because he's able to verbalize it better. So think about that. Be prepared to verbalize every single thing you did. Take a minute to think about the answer to this question. What are the 3 main traits that make you a good manager? Again, this is a good time to pause the video and think about what are your 3 best traits. Be prepared to talk about that. This is another coaching question for you. How many days do you spend in the field coaching? And when you're in the field with them coaching, how do you coach them? What do you do in the field when you're coaching your reps? Be prepared to talk about both of those, especially for organizations that are looking for a coach. So take a minute to think about that. What do you do when you're in the field with your reps to coach them? And how often do you coach them? Most people take no pleasure in this one. Have you ever fired a rep? Have you ever counseled a rep into making a career change? Important question. Again, this goes back to PIPs and managing people out of the organization if they probably shouldn't be there. So be prepared if you've done that to talk about how you did it, how it went. Hopefully it went smoothly and hopefully you bettered that person's life and put them in an organization where they should be versus being a sales rep. But be prepared to talk about that. This is another one of my very, very favorite questions. How do you coach reps when you're not present? And a lot of times I talk about myself on this one, which is I'm a former basketball coach, and I know that if I tell people to work on their left-handed layups and I leave the gym, they're probably not going to work on their left-handed layups. So how do you coach reps when you're not present and get them to do what they're supposed to be doing? It's a great question, and spend a little bit of time thinking about that. You only get a few days a month in the field with each of your reps. So what are you doing to coach them when you're not there? This question is along the same lines as the last one, which is you only get a few days a month with each rep. So how do you determine whether your reps are doing what they're supposed to be doing when you're not directly supervising them? Do you use Salesforce? Do you look at the results? Do you call them? What exactly are you doing to make sure that they're accomplishing what they should be accomplishing and that they're working in the way that they're supposed to? And along the lines of coaching, what are they doing to improve themselves? Great question. Another good question coming up. How do you motivate your reps? What do you do to motivate your reps so they're working their hardest in the field and working on improving themselves? Take a minute to think about that. This is important. So how do you motivate your reps, especially when you're not present? How do you develop your people? Another very, very important question. And along those lines, what is your greatest accomplishment in this area? Have you managed some people to President's Club? Would they have gotten there without you? Were they perennial President's Club people that you inherited? Or did you hire them and get them to President's Club? Or were they struggling and you turned them around and got them to President's Club? And if you did specifically, what did you do to get them there? So again, how do you develop your people? And what are the results of the people you've developed? How have you influenced the direction of your current organization? Some people have had that experience, others have not. So if you've just completely focused on your team, you may not have this experience. But if you've been involved with higher level strategy sessions and leadership, you might be able to talk directly to policies and procedures that you've put in place with the organization. Sometimes when I'm interviewing people, I've learned all sorts of different things as far as policies and procedures people have put in and strategies their companies are using based on what they did. What goals have you set for yourself professionally this year? I'd be prepared to talk about your professional goals and your personal goals. Obviously, every sales manager is expected to set goals for him or her team, and himself or herself. So be prepared to talk about goals and what they are. If you ever talk to me for a long period of time, you'll hear the word strategic used a lot. So here's a question for you about that. Give me some examples of strategic thinking and acting strategically for a different result. This could be anything from coaching reps to change their performance or their routine or other things, to getting doctors to change their paradigm in their office and going into organizations and um, implementing processes and protocols to change the paradigm. And it could also involve strategy for your entire organization if you have that opportunity. So be prepared to talk about strategic thinking and examples of it. Here's an interesting question I've heard several times from debriefs after manager interviews. What are the occasions where you feel you must consult your manager before making a decision? I can think of a lot of reasons to ask this question, but think to yourself, with your experience, when do you feel like you need to go to your boss and when don't you? Be prepared to talk to it. Depending on your organization and the way they operate, you may be in there selling along with your rep, kind of in a strategic or regional account manager type role occasionally. So, do you have any experience getting doctors or businesses to change the paradigm of their business? This is a higher level question. What do you typically do to get something on formulary or get something accepted by a particular organization? Be prepared to talk about that because it may not solely be managing reps and coaching reps, but you might be expected to go in and actually close some large deals occasionally. This is one of my favorite things to talk about, and you'll see it in almost every video I talk about, which is recording yourself. And again, this is the old basketball coach in me. When you tape a player and show them what they look like, you're able to get them to consciously be aware of what they look like and what needs to be fixed. Same thing is true with interviewing. It's a great idea to go through this video and answer those questions that I've asked you and record yourself doing that so you see what you sound like and you can make adjustments and come across the way you want to. As I've shot through these videos, I've corrected so many different things about myself, especially if you're doing video interviews. You may really want to spend some time recording yourself. It's very, very easy. You can go into PowerPoint, click on slideshow and click record, and that's all you have to do. And now you've essentially turned your computer into a useful coaching tool, especially for yourself. So there's a reason so many athletes, so many politicians, so many stars, so many captains of industry record themselves so that they can see what needs to be adjusted and corrected. If you liked this video, essentially I have three things to ask of you. One, click the like button so that I get more people watching it. Two, possibly subscribe if you want. I think the only things that will show up in your newsfeed occasionally is when I post another video, which I'm posting like one every 2 weeks or something, so I'm not going to overwhelm you there. But the third thing that you could actually really would be useful, and I think you're learning how diligent I am about things, is if you're in a position where you're hiring people, keep me in mind. I'd love to work with you. So those are the three things I'd ask of you. Again, if there's anything I can do to help coach you to get the district manager job you're interviewing for, good luck. Feel free to reach out to me. Always willing to help. Thanks. Enjoyed spending this time with you.